Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is doing well. We're going to give people just a few minutes to come into the room. And let's see here. While we do that, if you have not subscribed to my email list, go over to rhondamary.com. Go ahead and subscribe to my email list so we can be sure to always stay in contact. Also, I am on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. On Facebook and Twitter, it's I am Rhonda Mary. Okay. On Instagram is Rhonda underscore Mary. And on TikTok, I can't even remember some form of Rhonda Mary for at least as long as they're willing to let me stay on the TikTok platform. So we'll see what happens with that. Hey Pilu. So, as you guys are coming into the room, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's go ahead and get right into what everybody is sitting on the edge of their seats tonight. Oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned. Don't forget, you can also get your really cool hoodies, unicorns, fairy dust, and AR-15s type of girl as well over there at rhondamary.com. Okay, y'all. So today it's midterm elections. A lot of you guys are sitting on the edge of your seats. Okay, some are suspecting that there is going to be a red wave that is going to be happening. That remains to be seen. A lot of the numbers are still coming in. Um, so basically, for Republicans to take over in the Senate and the House, they would need a net gain of one in the Senate and a net gain of five in the House. So we'll see what happens. You already have some people who have already won their seats. You have Marco Rubio winning down there in Miami-Dade. And I just came across this tweet from Sean King, which I thought was super interesting. And I want to read this to you guys. Sean King said, no single large county in America has turned red more than Miami Dade County in Florida. Hillary Clinton won there by nearly 30%. Ron DeSantis is now up there nearly 10%. A 40% flip, which makes it nearly impossible for Democrats to win any statewide elections there. Okay, so let's take a look and think about this for a second. What's going on in Miami-Dade? So, if you didn't know, Miami-Dade is nearly 70% Hispanic. Why I find this interesting, very interesting that this is being said by Sean King. You will note that in this particular tweet, he doesn't mention demographics. I'm very interested to see how this is going to be approached in the next few weeks to even several years, as people like Sean King and Democrats work to flip Miami-Dade, which has gone so far red, to going back purple or blue. Why I find this particularly interesting is because even with the demographic swaying that heavily Hispanic in Miami-Dade, we have not seen disrespect for Hispanic voters, okay, like we have seen particularly with Black voters, like I am going to talk about tonight, more specifically Black men. But there was no bullying, there was no saying slight things to the people of the area of Miami-Dade County. There was none of that, no nonsense. It's just strictly, this is a problem and we need to address it. So it's going to be very telling moving forward how they address this, because as you notice, as you notice, they pick and choose who they talk. crazy too. Okay. They pick and choose, and I find it very interesting that certain demographics, they feel like, because this is almost a call to action from Sean King saying, hey, this thing has gone so far, how can we flip this? Democrats better get on board. They better figure out what's going on in Miami-Dade, because Miami-Dade, like, this is unheard of, okay, for something to go that far back red after, previously being Democrat. And so yeah. So, hey to everybody coming into the room. Hey, David. Hey, Edward. Hey, Regular Degula. Okay, so let's talk about. Oh, also, I wanted to mention the fact that I believe, okay, a huge part of why this is happening is particularly because of the COVID response that was taken in Florida. And then I also believe that, if I had to guess, some of the, I can't even call it a gender war. It's this very leftist, the whole sexuality, gender, all of these other things that they're doing in the schools. And you really see a lot of the Republicans in Florida taking a lead on these issues and kind of being the forefront in what the media is creating as the opposing narrative, right? Like down there in Florida, and some of the things that DeSantis is doing and saying. And we previously talked about that, and I think that it has a lot to do with that. You also have to remember that Hispanic people in general, a lot of them tend to be or have more conservative values and things like that. So when you trying to shut people out of businesses and everything else that was going on, and you have people, a demographic that is very economics is important. So when you have things like that, I don't doubt for 1 second that a lot of that, even when you look at the economy now, and a lot of people are doing well in Florida and moving to Florida, but a lot of people are really feeling the heat of inflation and things like that. Even when we look at, and I don't have it pulled up here, and I should have, but I was looking at an MSNBC poll earlier, and it was asking people what was most important to them going into the elections. A lot of Democrats assumed that abortion was going to be very important to people going into this election, and it just has not been the case. Overwhelmingly, a lot of people are saying that it's economics that is important to them. And also, my personal belief is that when you have a society that is moving further and further away, I mean, people don't even say safe, legal, and rare anymore, right? They don't even say that anymore. And now a lot of these politicians in these localities are trying to create spaces where it's becoming more and more extreme. Okay. It's just pushing more and more extreme ideologies. And a lot of people just aren't seeing that as a priority over economics, right? And not really, you have a huge part of the population that will never even deal with that issue. They won't personally be affected by abortion. And so they're just not, but you know what people are going to be affected by? When they pulling up to that gas pump, when they're trying to buy a pack of chicken from their local Walmart, and these other things, when they're trying to buy a baby formula and all of these other things that are weighing on people and weighing on their pockets every single day. You know what I mean? Every single day, even if you have women that have dealt with abortion or maybe even care about it as an issue, that when you're weighing it with what people are feeling economically right now, I mean, it's getting pretty crazy out here. I saw a blue chick, what is his name? He's like a bodybuilder. I can't think of his name right now. I think it's I don't want to mess it up. But anyway, and he was just tweeting today. He was like, man, like if it's getting hard for me and I'm feeling it, I can just even imagine how everyday people are dealing with and responding to, everything that's going on economically. And so I think that a lot of people are showing up to the polls to express that. But like I said, the numbers aren't fully in. For some reason, they're thinking that Georgia is going to have some of the slowest numbers to come in. I don't know exactly what it is. And you even see some people already going out their way to allude to um, voter fraud, and things like this, possible voter fraud. They do everything but be held accountable and say this is where we screwed up. We could have did this better. Anyway, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that tonight. But something that's been really interesting is this pitch that if Stacey Abrams loses, which last time I looked, and I'm going to pull it up here, I have the live numbers up. Last time I looked, Stacey Abrams was in the lead in Georgia. But one thing to keep in mind that you usually have Democrats that sway very heavily in the early voting. Okay, so that may be something to keep in mind. However, you already have people trying to create this pitch, this campaign that, oh, okay, if Stacey Abrams loses, it's the black man's fault. Like it's already happening, and it's so crazy to me, and it's so crazy how they talk to a certain demographic of people. So I'm going to show you guys 2 videos, and then we're going to talk about it. Let's see if it lets me play through the whole video.
Made a really legitimate point here. I will say, a lot of black men sometimes feel like they're ignored or they're put down, particularly sometimes even by black women in the media. So this is not that. But I do hear Roland's point. They felt ignored. But you feel ignored, and then you go over to the other side. The oppressed feel oppressed. So then you go and try to align with the oppressor. So I'm not putting black men down, but sometimes it's like, well, some of you Kevin Samuels following Tariq Nasheed quoting people, please look at the truth and see what's happening and get in line with some of the black women. Is majority, like he said, vote Democrat. But that margin of people who could be plucked away from your people and go advance policies that harm your people, I just don't understand that.
Yeah. So you had a lot of people that were kind of upset with this clip, and I would say rightfully so. First of all, if you actually watch this entire segment, let me exit out of this real quick. If you actually watch this entire segment, it's really the majority of it is a good segment, right? Like they dissect some of the things that's been happening since 2018. They kind of talk about, how, not necessarily, they don't go into detail about what black men want. I mean, they do absolutely mention like economics, right? But they have these different perspectives and these breakdowns of what's been lacking and where there's been failure, which I think was majority really strong and things to look at. And it's like, okay, well, here are some areas that may have dropped off. Here are some areas that they needed improvement. Here are some areas where Kemp's team has done better, right? And even kind of talking a little bit about Stacey's journey since 2018 up until now. But you get towards the end of this segment, And all of that practically goes out the window when you have Tiffany Cross here that says, I know y'all already feel like people talking down to you. I know you already feel like people are dissing you. And I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm totally going to do that right now. Like, that's exactly what this is going to be. And she goes on to insult Black men right after saying that she wasn't going to do so. Okay. You go on to bring up the names of Kevin Samuels and Tariq Nasheed. These are two, in their own right, very influential men. They both have, because even Kevin Samuels, up until recently, his name would still be trending ever so often on Twitter, right? And so both of these guys in their own right had these followings, particularly of Black men, and to go on into diss them when obviously you don't have the answers, because if you had the answers, you wouldn't need to make a segment like this. And as far as TV goes, this is a 10-minute segment. This isn't a 3 to 5 minute segment. So when they're talking about something at this length, it's kind of a big deal. And then to go on and to say, oh, well, Black men just need to get on board with Black women, right? It's this very uh feminized thing that happens. And ironically, I believe that compared to other communities, the Black community is actually way more matriarchal than a lot of your other communities, with being okay with women being in leadership, right? Whether that be at the schools, the churches, in politics, and these other things. And even one of the guys mentioned early on how Black men in really big numbers voted for Hillary Clinton, you know? And so this idea, to perpetuate this idea that Black men would not vote for Stacey Abrams simply because she is a woman, I do not see, and neither did they give any proof of that in this segment, nor have I been able to find anything that would suggest such. And so it's just such a diss, and it undermines not only Black people but the Black community. I don't see any other demographic of women being separated from the men in this instance, right? And it's almost this thing that we've seen with the jabbed and the unjabbed. And that's the first thing that's coming to mind. But I'm sure there's all these other ways we can think about recently where you've had these polarizations of these topics, and almost trying to make certain people in this country outliers, right? Like, you're outside the group, you're fringe, almost creating these opportunities for people to, bullied is a first word that's coming to mind. But it's like, if you don't get on board, if you don't go with the majority, right? If you are in any way the minority, then you're out, and you should be ostracized and demeaned and all of these other things. And so the disrespect, I mean, like I noted earlier with that Sean King tweet, you don't see, oh well, the Hispanics in Miami-Dade need to get on board with whoever, or you just don't see that demographic. They get a choice. They get to not be a monolith. Even Joe Biden said it out his own mouth. Like, he said something similar to, well, Hispanics not like y'all. I mean, they kind of like think differently. You know what I mean? They aren't a monolith like y'all. And even she goes on to say, well, why would you step outside of your people? Black people are the only humans in the world that have their identity, like their entire existence attached to a political party. It's like a birthright. Like you don't have a choice. It's just stamped on you and given to you once you enter the world. It's like, oh, you black, and nobody can ignore it. Nobody can ignore when Joe Biden himself said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, right? And so we kind of see those sentiments being echoed. And I think that a lot of people are getting tired of that. They're getting fed up. Roland Martin, along with these other men, that made that very clear in this segment. So I don't understand why she would go on to ignore all of that and be like, screw that. I know y'all been getting y'all feelings hurt by what people been saying and making y'all feel like y'all fault, like it's your fault. And I'm not really gonna do that, but I'm literally about to do that right now. I'm about to use the same shaming tactics instead of validating anything that's been said here, instead of listening and hearing concerns. I'm gonna turn around and do the exact opposite of what this segment is supposed to be about. You know, and it's just interesting to watch the level of disrespect that we see here. And so at this point, Tiffany Cross has actually been fired from MSNBC. I'm not like super duper familiar with her work. I think she had a weekend show. I read a lot of my news now. Like I don't typically watch, program news. I pretty much just read everything so I can like read it, with my own eyes instead of a commentator saying, "Oh, well, this is, what's happening," and like, pointing their finger, shaking their finger at me and admonishing me. And you typically do not get that when you read, your news. So I'm not super familiar with her, but some people are suggesting that she went on this show with Charlemagne and they were talking about Florida, and she basically called Florida the penis of America. And she didn't say penis, she used a slang term for penis, and said that Florida was that of America, and basically alluded to the fact that it should be castrated and how terrible Florida is. But please remember, during the lockdowns, you had people like AOC and some of her blue check buddies sneaking into Florida. Can't even say sneaking, right? Into Florida to reap the benefits of the great economy and the weather and the freedom that was happening at Florida at that time. And now, like I said, going back to that Sean King and what's happening in Miami-Dade, now you kind of see this all coming full circle. And so it's very annoying and obnoxious when these people just try to ignore like what is right in front of them, what's literally being said to them. Like, here's a checklist of why black men are checking out. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Y'all can talk, but yeah, screw that. We don't want to hear that. Get on board. Get in line. You know what I mean? And this is a theme that has been going across politics right now, is going across Hollywood, okay? When we see what is happening to people like Kyrie Irving and Kanye West, there is a long line of lashes and admonishing of black men who, decide to stray even a little bit of the path that has been put in front of them, the allowed path, right? Like, if you don't think like this, if you don't move like this, you ain't black. And then here come all the other terms: misogynistic, anti-Semitic, racist, and all these other things that are going to come from that. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate to watch. I am happy to see that you have more of the grassroots speaking out on this and saying enough is enough. Okay. You kind of have a Shannon Sharp who is recently kind of reeling back a little bit on his statements regarding Kyrie Irving. He goes on to say, okay, well, yeah, I think the things he said, I don't stand with hate. But now when you're sending this man a checklist of you need to do this, this, and that, it's gone so beyond its initial thing that you're obviously trying to make this man bow, in the public sphere. um you're trying to embarrass him. You're trying to make an example out of him. And so we'll see over the next few days. Will anybody else reel back on their statements? But I see a lot of grassroots people fighting back against this narrative that Black men should continue to be separated from Black women and how we're discussing these issues. Also, that you can talk to Black men any type of way. These are adult human beings. And you really don't recently see other demographics being spoken to like this, at least as it relates to voting. Now, I do think it's weird that they're saying that Tiffany Cross got fired from calling Florida the penis, of America. I just think it's weird. You do have some blue chicks, rallying for her, campaigning for her to get her job back. They basically decided to end her contract. I guess maybe she had many strikes against her, or this wasn't her first time kind of doing or saying more controversial things. Why I particularly find it weird is because it appears to me that you never know which side of the council culture you're gonna fall on. I look at DaBaby, and he had his statements that some people considered homophobic a few years ago, and he never bounced back for that. But then you'll have a Drake that'll say something about the Megan a Stallion, and people are now calling this misogynistic, but I highly doubt that anything is going to happen to Drake. And then you'll have Kanye West, who is now, people are attempting to counsel him, but the things he's saying, Kanye West, Jay-Z, and several others have been saying in their music for I don't know how long. These things are not hard to find. These things are on a record. So, it just gets weird. Even going back to the Tiffany Cross thing, you literally have Sunny Houston, I think that's how you say her name, on The View, and she goes on to compare white Republican women to roaches. Okay, this recently happened. You had very little uproar about it. I just think that that's weird, and that's such a like, okay, cool, Sonny. Like, we know you super leftied out. You know what I mean? But to compare a group of people to like freaking roaches, Kyrie Irving didn't even say that. Let's look at this for a second, right? And so now this is gonna, even to my point, or I mean, even argue against my point a little bit, because here now I am dissecting and analyzing how Black men are being looked at and talked to and talked down and demeaned and all these other things. But it's like people get to pick, like why does it matter what day of the week it is and who's saying these things? It's just very weird. It's just very weird. You can talk about the role that the white man played in the Atlantic slave trade, in child slavery, and all these other things, and nobody blinks a freaking eye. But then when you talk about the Jews and the role they played, now it's a problem. Now it's anti-Semitic, right? When we start having some of these same conversations, you can say all day that the white man heavily has an influence in Hollywood and politics and things like this, but switch out white man for the word Jew or Jewish man, and now it's anti-Semitic. Now it's a problem. It just gets really weird when we're picking and choosing, like, okay, who we're canceling today, how we can go about talking about these things in an actual real way. Kyrie Irving never disparaged or used demeaning language towards Jewish people. Imagine if Kyrie Irving would have got on TV and compared Jewish people to cockroaches. Cockroaches. So I don't know if this is black woman, or maybe I should say biracial woman privilege, that Sunny Houston gets to sit on The View and compare white Republican women to cockroaches. And they're literally, all Kyrie Irving did was post a link to a documentary, and they're basically like hanging this man in a public square in front of everybody to say, see, you better not say this, you better not say this about Jewish people. Like do y'all kind of see what I'm saying and where I'm going with this? So I'm just trying to fully grasp and understand the different dynamics of who we can say things about and who we can't. And even me, right? Because it depends on who you asking and what day it is. One day I'm anti-black, one day I'm anti-white, one day I'm anti-Semitic, one day I'm anti-trans. It freaking depends on who you asking and the day of the week, right? But never, never, it's no point on no record of nothing can y'all find anything of me calling an entire group or demographic of people a demeaning name, a demeaning slur. You cannot find it. It does not exist. Okay? The worst I said is that people that want to transition children are concerned with the sexuality of children are questionable. But I think that has a pretty strong basis, if I have to say so myself. But I've never called an entire demographic of trans people any type of name. You know what I mean? And so I am just trying to really understand this level of hypocrisy and this level of counseling and trying to give somebody 100 lashes to make sure that everybody else watching can learn a lesson from this, right? When you got other people sitting here that I can just say anything and it's very little to no accountability. Even when we think of that comment that Whoopi Goldberg said that time, she still has her job. I think she made a simple apology and she just went on with her life, smooth sailing. But as she looked at the Holocaust, she said that this wasn't a race issue, it was a hate issue. People went absurd. To this day, I have not heard a good and that does not sound like a hateful or I hate Jewish people type of statement. Now, depending on you and your beliefs and your religion, you may believe that statement is a little bit misguided. I still don't see how that statement was considered as problematic as it was. Even if, let's say, you disagree with it, I think that there could at least, at the very least, be enough for an argument there, right? Like a debate. Like, let's talk around and figure out why I feel this way, why I may look at it like this. And let's look at that in a historical context, right? A worldwide context, a religious context, a ethnicity context, right? all of these layers of why I may be presenting this as an argument. But she also was pushed into the public square to make this apology. And, you know, it just gets weird, man. It just gets weird. And I think that a part of this weirdness that is happening uh is what happens when you have a culture of people walking on eggshells. You have people that really cannot be brought to debate their ideas. I was watching something the other day about Brianna Joy. I think Joy is either her last name or middle name, but I think you guys know who I'm talking about. She works on The Hill now, and she brought a guy on, and he was talking about how Russians are kidnapping up to 500 children a day from Ukraine, and how America just has to come in and save the day and do this and do that. And her response was, give me a actual legitimate reason why we should use our tax dollars to play superhero in this when we don't have that standard for others. Look at what's been allowed to happen in Haiti. People were mad. For some reason, this was offensive because she said, I don't agree. Give me a superior argument, right? Of when people of a certain complexion, you want the United States to come in and play hero, but we do not maintain that standard for others. And I need you to give me and my viewers a superior argument of why we should agree with that. Because at this point, you're not winning this debate. You're not changing my mind on this. You're not saying or giving me anything valuable. It makes me buy into what you're saying. For some people, that's offensive. And I just felt like, I can't remember the guy who came on, but I felt like, yeah, give a superior argument. If you are right, if you are just, if you are moral, you should be able to effortlessly translate these ideas where they make sense to everyday people, right? But it's been this hit on people that instead of letting the market decide, instead of letting everyday people decide what they want to buy into, you will have him retweet Brianna and say, oh, she was attacking me on her show, right? And then you will have these followers that'll just come out in droves, and it's no a healthier way would be, okay, did you make the argument? If not, let's go to YouTube comments and see what they said after this show. But no, you want to kind of create minions. You want to use your sphere of influence to have people attack others. And it's getting to the point, right? Even when Kanye West said, I can't remember the particular guy, but he's one of these, Jewish guys that is like a very key influential person in this network. And he's going around calling up all his Jewish homies and buddies, according to Kanye West, saying, hey, we're dropping him. You should too. That's not the consumer deciding. That's not the market deciding. That is people gatekeeping. That is people creating these networks to demean and admonish. It's the same thing we see happening in politics. It's the same thing, Tiffany Cross. Instead of saying, hey, I hear what black men are saying. I hear what they're feeling. We need to dive more into this and come up with solutions so we can speak directly to this demographic. Does that happen? No, it's gatekeeping and admonishing. It's like, we don't give a crap about that. Get back in line. Get on board. And you see this happening across Hollywood. You see it happening across politics. You cannot say that this is just by accident. Oh, it's just the way things are. It's just a natural progression of how things are happening. No, it's a huge push for some people to have voices and for some to not, for some to be demeaned and for some to not. And what we need to do is figure out who's running this show and why is this happening. Racer X, thank you for the 9.99 super chat. He said they're doing this to Mr. Irvin as an example to the rest of us. The entire point is for the punishment to be totally disproportionate to the offense. We are being put in our place. I 100%. That is like a perfect type of statement. And some guy that I retweeted the other day was a blue check. I cannot remember his name. Literally use those words. He said something to the effect of it's time to put Kyrie Irving in his place. Put him in his place. Just think about that, right? Let's think about that. Let's think about the psychology of that. A grown man telling another grown man, we're going to put you in your place. Where is that place? Obviously, it's beneath me. It's beneath me because I have the power to put you in it. I mean, he had no qualms about saying that. I would never. I would never. I've never fixed my mouth to say about an adult, I'm gonna put you in your place. But these are supposed to be the morally superior, righteous people. But they'll call me every ist and phobic and ism in the book. And you've never seen me talk to anybody like this. And I'm gonna leave a little space for myself for people that have actually attacked me with certain language. If you come out of your way to attack me, demeaning me, name calling me, that's just different. All bets are off, and I feel no type of way about that. So if y'all see me saying something on Twitter and you're like, oh, this is totally out of character for Rhonda, no, the more you F around the more you find out. Okay, like that's what it gets to when it gets to that point. Like once you start name calling me or specifically demeaning me and bashing me, and it's moving to personal, and it's no longer about the topic of what we're talking about, all bets are off. All bets are off, and I don't feel any type of way about that, and I am going to try to hurt your feelings. I want to be clear about that. Like that's what's happening. But people that don't agree with me, going back and forth on a topic, you never have nothing to worry about. And like I said, there's no instance of me using name calling for an entire demographic of people. Like there's just not happening. I think it's beneath me. I think it's beneath my character. I think it's beneath a lot of people. And I have stood by and maintained that. And to see some people getting canceled, right, for talking around or debating different topics while other people can sit and literally, I mean, say some of the worst things about people is just insane to me. It's insane to me. Freedom by Me Homesteading said Whoopi Goldberg has publicly stated that she changed her last name to what it is to gain favor with a certain demographic in Hollywood. So think about that and think about the implications of that, right? You're not going to change your name to something if it doesn't have power behind it to make that very deliberate decision. So let's look real quick at this Stacey Abrams video.
Indeed, is disrespect.
So I got.
And I do not believe it's because of a deep well of enthusiasm for my opponent. We know that Black voters are often discounted, and unfortunately this year Black men have been a very targeted population for misinformation. Not misinformation about what they want, but about why they want what they deserve. And my campaign has been the only one that has very intentionally, thoughtfully, and consistently reached out. That has been misconstrued as concern, when it indeed is just respect.
What they wanted, they thought they wanted. My concern is just really respect. I don't know what she was trying to say. They have this really good thing of keeping this very, this politically correct demeanor when they put in a whole lot of words together that it's like, what are you even trying to say here? And so let's see. This was a live elections last time I checked. Let's see if we can find Abrams on here. Last time I checked, she was leading. Is it on here? Am I overlooking it? This is why I'm supposed to wear my glasses every time I go live. So Senate, House, Governors. Okay. Okay. Oh. So 60% of votes are in, and this is saying Kemp is leading by a +6 margin. And I literally, before I started this video, Abrams was leading, but like I said, keep in mind that a lot of that was from early voting, and typically Democrats get out more for early voting. Okay, so right now 60% of those votes are in. Kemp is up. We're gonna see what happens. As you can see, Stacey Abrams there went on to say that Black men are being hit with misinformation, right? So on one hand, you have a Tiffany Cross saying like, we don't even care what you want, get in line. And then you have Stacey Abrams undermining the intelligence of Black men, because of course Black men don't know what they want. They can't stray from the beat or the path that's been laid out for them by me or people like me. And so they really just don't know any better, clearly. It's so insulting, man. It's so insulting. Like, who just wakes up and think like, I'm gonna talk to a whole demographic or about a whole demographic of people like this today? It's like the nerve, you know what I mean? Like the audacity. It's so offensive, and it's so undermining to the intelligence of some people, saying, hey, you're not speaking to us, you're not giving us what, or you're not hearing our concerns, or we're just, we're gonna vote another way, or we're just not gonna show up at all. And actually, if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of people that did early voting. So even that idea of, oh well, you're just not showing up. I mean, Black men have always voted heavily for Democrats. Now, I will say this, in that segment that I was watching with Tiffany Cross, I believe that Roland Martin or someone on the panel mentioned that about in 2018, about another maybe 100,000 to 300,000 votes would have helped Stacey win that election. I can't remember the exact number. And they kind of alluded to the fact that, the Black men who were kind of swaying from the beating path could have made up that difference, and that's what they were hoping for going into this election. So it's going to be interesting how these numbers skew. Kemp is currently in the lead. We're going to see what happens, but I know 100%, If Stacey Abrams does not win this race, they're going to absolutely find a way to blame it on somebody. Okay. It's going to be voter fraud. It's going to be voter suppression. It's going to be black men's fault. It's going to be Republican women. It's going to be something. Something, very much something. Okay. That's going to happen. Very rarely, I would have to really, really, really think on some examples. Very rarely do these people have the ability to say, you know what? Here's where we messed up. Here's where we failed. This is where we could get stronger and do better. Okay. For these people who Tiffany Cross and this panel that had the nerve to talk down on Tariq Nasheed actually just had a very successful reparations rally, I believe that was in DC, and was able to get a pretty good turnout that from what I could tell from the videos and the follow-ups and the spaces was pretty heavily dominated by black men. Even the panel, I think you may have had one black woman who was Teslin Figaro, if I remember correctly, that was actually brought in to speak. So you have a black man uh, or black men led rally, right? And very heavily skewed demographic of black men coming to DC for that. And so instead of ostracizing or demeaning an entire demographic of people, maybe talking to them and seeing what could get them politically engaged, seeing what's important to them, instead of demeaning people like the leader of this rally, maybe talking to him, okay, and creating coalitions, you know, instead of trying to turn a blind eye and pretend that a lot of us can't see what we clearly see with our own eyes. Also, I think that a lot of people you're going to see pulling away from this idea that, you know, unfettered illegal immigration is just good or you know, a good idea or works favorably not only for Americans but specifically for the black community. You have a lot of black men, I would presume, who, especially when it comes to what will more be considered the unskilled labor, which is really be skilled for real, because you know I can't do a lot of that stuff that you actually have to know to like do with your hands and some of these other things. But anyway, you know, economics is a big issue right now, and when you have people that think that, oh well, how is this going to affect us, how is this going to affect our jobs and all these other things, I think that that messaging of this black and brown and always throwing these two things in a basket and just giving it to voters and saying, well, this got to go together because that's just how it is and it's just how it works. And I think that you are having a lot of people, more people, be more okay with this very individualized experience when it comes to politics and it comes to voting. It is becoming more okay and more popular for people to step outside of what's supposed to be believed or expected from their demographic. That's why you see, even in a very Hispanic dominated area like a Miami-Dade, it's like, heck no, we saw what DeSantis did with COVID. We like that. And this is where we're going with that. You know, this is the direction that we're gonna go, and have no qualms about that. I would presume. And so I think that a lot of people are getting fed up. They're getting tired of being told that other people's issues are their issues. There was a heavy push for Black men to take on abortion rights as their leading issue. Like think about that. You know what I mean? I bet you if you just went up and talked to random Black men on the street and asked them what's important to them in this facing election or this current election, I could bet you majority of them would not have abortion rights at the top of their list. Just wouldn't happen. So I think people are okay with moving more and more towards this individualized experience of, look, you keep telling me to fall in line, or fall in line with Black women, or Black and brown coalitions, and it's like all of this on the behalf of other people. What am I actually getting or gaining from this? And I think that's okay. I think that's okay, because I think that for so long, first of all, I think that the matrix needs a little shake from time to time. And I also don't think that Black people just come out of the womb Democrat by birthright. I don't think that's a thing. And I think it's very dangerous when you tie your entire identity and your allegiance to a political party. Like just think about that, really. It almost signifies that you are owned in a way. I mean, you don't have a choice in the matter. What does that entail? Like, what does that say? The foundation of that message is what? Like you just supposed to not have a choice. You just born into this thing. Like, it's almost like a mafia at that point, you know? And so but I really hope, man. I really hope let me I'm gonna update the numbers again just to see. It's another point. Kemp is up by 7, a margin of +7. And it's 63% of the votes in Georgia. And we knew DeSantis. I mean, we knew DeSantis was gonna pull through, because he's just been a standout. I mean, he just ever since the COVID thing, and he was just really getting pushed into the forefront a lot with that. And a lot of people, I mean, you could say what you want, you could tweet what you want, but feet and money don't lie. Feet and money don't lie. You had a lot of people packing their bags up and moving to Florida. I mean, that's just what it is. You could say and feel how you want on Twitter, but you had people moving out of places like New York. I know for sure at record rates, and possibly California too. But California, I mean, that's been happening, at big numbers for like the last decade, probably. But yeah, now we're looking at Kemp up by a +7 margin with 63% of the votes. And so what I hope to see, because I have been at this point talking about this for several years at this time, where, I remember when I originally made that walk away video. And at the time, I didn't nearly know or understand as much as I do now. And for some of you that have been very super duper supportive and rocking with me literally since that time, where it's been years now, some things I have been learning and growing, and y'all have been able to see me on that journey and kind of really structuring how I feel on certain issues. And I talk about this. Abortion is probably just really stands out to me in terms of how I remember being at a point in my life where I honestly didn't know anything about it. I saw somebody tweet the other day, and they said, it's so crazy to me that people can argue or debate something so avidly that they haven't even researched themselves. Like, how is that? How is that possible? And I retweeted it and I said, because a lot of people think that because something has been programmed into them, they've been educated into it, right? And I was one of those people because going back to what I was saying, the abortion issue just kind of stands out in my mind because that's one issue that I know specifically with me. My personal experience is that I was repeating a lot of the talking points and I really didn't know anything about the procedure, about the lifespan of the baby, the fetus. I didn't know what's done during a procedure. I didn't know any of this. And I just had an opinion. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we feel like that's the thing that you're supposed to do, and everybody on TV has this opinion, or these things are pushed to be such a polarizing issue. And I've now come to the conclusion that you don't always have to have an opinion. I mean, that's the first thing. You don't always have to have an opinion. Like sometimes humans, I was talking to a friend recently and they was asking me how I felt about something, like my emotions behind it. And I'm like, I think initially, and this was not politics related, by the way. And I said, I think initially I'm bothered. Like that's my initial reaction. I said, but I need to sit with this a little bit longer to really get to the foundation of why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And I think that that's a okay thing to do. I'm tired of people kind of being pushed, into these boxes, into these very polarized topics, right? Even if we look at how a lot of people were treated during COVID, you had some people that are very much on board for every previous or majority of the previous vaccinations, but it's like this COVID thing. I'm not with it. I have reasons for concern. I have questions, I have doubts, and they were just pushed into the anti-vax box with everybody else. And it's like, are we even attempting to dissect and see people as living, breathing, like human people that you know have these different uh levels of opinion, right? Like, even so, for example, I talked about DeSantis and I look at how I feel about DeSantis. Something that I was really on board for was a part of that COVID response and trying to get the kids back into the schools. But I very much do not like the fact that, and I believe this is still happening in Florida to this day, where you had on a local level people saying, hey, we want people with previous felonies to be able to vote. They've done their time and they deserve this right to be restored. But then you have this decision, it's like, oh, well, no, they gotta pay X, Y, and Z to vote. And it's like, oh, okay, so you're almost, holding my vote hostage in some ways, or making sure that I'm having to pay this fee. And so I just think that it's okay to agree with people in some instances and not in others. And that's a beautiful part of what makes us human. But the unfortunate part is going back to the Kanye West and the Kyrie Irvings and all of these other people. If you say one thing that's outside of the talking points that are allowed for you, people just try to just throw you away. You know what I mean? It's like you're an undesirable, you know? And so I don't know, man. It's just weird. And I think that it's getting worse. And I think that a lot of people are being pushed more to these kind of individualized experiences. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that in a lot of ways, when you focus on the individual and make the individual stronger, you make the family stronger. The family makes the community stronger. The community, makes the country stronger. I think ideally, that's how it would work. But it's weird because I feel like at some point I think that there has to be a climax here. I could be weird and uh um maybe that's not exactly what happened, but I think that things are starting to, it's almost as if things are becoming so polarized, so left and right, so black and white, so Semitic and anti-Semitic, trans and quote unquote anti-trans, right? And every other thing, jabbed and unjabbed. That is like, okay, does this ever kind of like the polarization of it all, the quote unquote anger and the hatred, and sometimes those things are there, and sometimes we're being told that it's that and it's not. And I think even being told that, oh, these people are polar opposite to you, and almost making enemies out of the minorities, or the minority, or what we're being told, because some of these ain't even minority opinions, for real, when you really start talking to people and sitting them down and seeing what's important to people. um but at what point does that kind of like level out, or does it level out, or does it get worse, or does it work its way up to like the country just freaking splitting, at some time, and Texas seceding and all these other things. And then I think, I don't know, maybe I just been listening to Dad from Trenchwork Chronicles too much, and it's like, oh, the end is like getting into all this black pill stuff, where I'm not that far yet, but some of these things I do wonder about, because it's like, okay, how far are these things gonna go? But anyway, I'm gonna check one more time and see if we had this where we at with Stacy in Kemp. Another point, 65% of the vote, +8 margin for Kemp. So we'll see what happens. A honest person would, if it doesn't work out, would say, hey, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board. I clearly already see some of the areas I could have worked harder and done better, because that's why I've been making concessions for all the way going up into midterms, you know. But anyway. All right, so thank y'all. Don't be calling me RhondaMary. Don't do that. Don't. I've been here for too long for y'all to still be messing up my name like that. Like, come on. But all right, y'all. Thank you so much for the super chats. If you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscription button below. Also, do not forget to share and like. Visit RhondaMary.com so we can always stay in touch. Go join my email blast, as well as you can get you a really cool unicorns, fairy dust, and AR-15s type of girl hoodie. We will see what happens with these races, and if there will be a red wave or not, that some people are suggesting, and some people are even fearing that it may be. We will be talking soon. Y'all have a good night. Bye.